Okay,
Ready.
we're gonna get started. Jane, are you ready? All right, here we go. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, December 14th, 2022, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. You can join today's board meeting via phone. Dial 971-254-3149. Conference ID 736-023-979#. Audio capabilities are listen only and offered on the best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us by going to tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute their phone. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned on. Thank you. Public comment. For those intending to make public comment to the board, you may attend in person or email submissions to publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Okay, do we have anyone in the room signed up for public comment, or has anyone registered online?
No.
No, okay, no public comment. Wonderful. All right, well, we have called this meeting to order, and I am chairing today as Commissioner Yamamoto is joining us remotely. All right, so we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Bell, would you please lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have already ascertained that we have no public comment. We do not have any non-agenda items this morning, so we will move right into our legislative administrative agenda with item number 5, discussion and consideration of an administrative policy for the library. And we have Don out here with us this morning. Good morning, Don.
Good morning, Commissioners. Hope you're having a great day. You have before you 12 library policies for your consideration and approval. And the policies that are in front of you are meant to maintain our library spaces in a way that makes them accessible to the most people in our community, while maintaining a safer atmosphere and fair use for a community resource. The list of policies covers rules for conduct in the library, the use of library technology, how library collections are developed, use of the community meeting spaces, confidentiality of library records, child safety, animals in the library's brand identity, photography, lost items, donations, and petitioning. So quite a bit that's covered there. And then these policies have been in practice in some form at the library for quite a while, but we are taking a step forward and asking you to formally approve these policies. Once approved, they will be posted on the library website to keep the public informed of the policies. The library will create a schedule with the library board to review current and potential new policies on an annual basis to make sure that we are able to provide the best service possible to the people of Tillamook County. So thank you for your consideration, and I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Wonderful, thank you. Questions or comments? Commissioner Bell.
I want to thank you for your work on this. Don is a fairly new library director. He's been with us 3 months now.
3 or 4, somewhere in there, yep.
And so he dove right in and looked at the policies and procedures with the intent of updating them, and has done a wonderful job. We've had a chance to review them. These are industry standard and best practice, and so we're just bringing them up to speed. And I appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yamamoto, questions or comments?
I agree with Commissioner Bell. Don, you're doing a great job at the library. We appreciate everything you've done in the short time that you've been there. These new library rules and regs, administrative policy, I think are terrific. And you've gotten together with us and really discussed them in detail. So I appreciate that very much. And I'm in full support of what you're doing here.
Perfect, thank you. And I would echo what the other two commissioners have said. We appreciate you bringing these forward and know that it's a bit of a dance when you walk in and immediately have policies that need to be approved. And I appreciate, when you came and spoke with us about how you went about it, that you worked with library staff who had been working on these to make sure you understood where they were coming from and why policies had been proposed in certain ways, and putting your years of experience to work to tweak them so that they met what a best practice would be, but really honoring the work of the staff that had already spent a lot of time. So I just appreciate the way that you walked that line. It's a tricky thing as the new guy, but moving forward, something that really needed to happen. So I think they look really good, and I appreciate the tweaks that you made out of the board briefing. That was just really helpful for us to dig in and be able to ask our questions. So I think, unless there's anything else from the other commissioners, we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of an administrative policy for the library.
And I will second.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Y'all saw me
Thank
take
you,
breath
Don.
to second. We're all in this sort of, routine where I'm the second generally. So perfect. Okay. Moving on to item number 6, which is discussion and consideration of a letter of support and intent to participate in the State of Oregon's Department of Environmental Quality's grant for on-site septic financial aid program. And I'm going to present this with the assistance of, I have Casey Mitchell online with me from Community Action Team, and we have Chris Keel in the room who can answer questions as well. So I'll start out and then I'll hand it to Casey. So when we put this on the agenda, the intention was for there simply to be a letter of support for a grant application that was being submitted by Community Action Team. Since that time, we've become aware that it is necessary for one of the 3 counties listed in the grant to serve as the grantee. And that would be either Tillamook, Clatsop, or Columbia. So we actually have a little bit more to explore this morning than just the letter of support. So I think what I would like to do is start with Casey and have him explain to us a little bit more about the grant itself, and then a lot about what it would mean for us to be the grantee and what the actual actions and activities would entail for the county. So can I just hand that over to you, Casey? You can give us a little bit more information.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Casey Mitchell. My address is 623 Lakeview Drive, Vernonia, Oregon. I work for Community Action Team, have for the last 20 years. Today we're here to talk about a DEQ funding opportunity to repair or replace septic systems throughout the 3 counties. And this money comes down, eligibility for this is our typical folks that we serve, which is low to moderate, and it actually goes all the way up to 120% of area median income. So it is a group of folks that usually fall outside of our funding that we can help. Throughout the 3 counties, we've been having meetings with public health officials and land development services, and talking about the problem that we have of septic systems that are either failed or failing. And the folks that have these issues, a lot of them, if they had the money, they've taken care of them. But unfortunately, we've got a lot of low-income folks out there that cannot afford to make a $15,000 repair or replacement on their septic system. We were delighted to hear that they're accepting applicants that can do both a grant and a loan process, and it's something that Community Action Team has done for 30 years, and have a loan product that is 0% interest, no payments on a 30-year note. At some point when that property changes hands, that money gets recycled back And we're able to use that again for a similar project for a low to moderate income individual. Typically, those funds can be revolved up to 5 times before we finally lose it through inflationary cost and loans that may not have panned out. So we're looking at this opportunity in using a grant loan combination. So we identify somebody that has a septic issue, whether it's a repair or replacement. We bring them through our system and sort them out so we can figure out financially where they fall in that range and if they are or not eligible. The folks that can support a loan, we will absolutely write these up as these no interest, no payment loans. We are anticipating that we may run into somebody because of issues with the title that we may not be able to make that loan on that property. We still want to fix the septic system. And so in those circumstances, we would use those funds in a grant. So as we've been talking with folks, there's the people that are in the business, your staff and the staff of the other counties, they've got projects that they've red flagged or they know have failed. They have lots of projects that they have strong suspicions about, but until now, kind of lacked the funding to be able to force people into compliance. And our thought through aggressive marketing and this loan setup, we should be able to reach everybody with a failed septic or failing septic, regardless of their financial position. And so at the end of this, I think the counties would be in a good position to be able to say, hey, you've got an issue with the septic tank. You didn't take advantage of the no interest loan or grant. But we've isolated those folks into a very small group that then the counties can figure out how best to deal with that. I was surprised to learn that, especially in Tillamook County, for a couple decades, you guys have done some pretty intensive water data collecting, and not just for the normal stuff that we see, which is turbidity and stream temperatures, but they've dove in pretty deep on the E. coli and actually have some testing that's pretty unique, which is the eDNA testing that can sort out whether that E. coli is caused by a cow, a elk, or a person. And that data is pretty darn useful for us. The way we're looking at this is that the stream folks in your area have already identified areas that have really high levels of E. coli. And we're going to be able to target those aggressively. And at the end of this process, Tillamook will, every 2 years, they do more studies and more sampling. And so at the end of 2 years, we should be able to see what kind of impact we made with cleaning up these septic systems. And that's pretty exciting for me because I think the benefits of that go way past Tillamook County. I believe DEQ would be able to use that to address other counties where they have issues and attack those accordingly. So the other 2 counties, the watersheds in the other 2 counties, Columbia and Clatsop County, they also have some water sampling. The E. coli stuff is mostly been done by DEQ in certain stream stretches, and so there's a little bit of data there. We're hoping through this process, we've set aside some money in the budget to help them do some more testing. And so we can kind of isolate some of those areas a little bit better and then do a follow-up testing when we're all done to see what kind of, did we move the marker there or not. We have 2 years to spend out this money. And in actuality, we have 2 years to obligate it. We actually have another year to have all the projects completely done. That was initially the thing we were most concerned about. We have a shortage of contractors in the 3 counties, and we were worried that we'd have way more projects than we had licensed contractors to deal with them. I feel a lot better about that, knowing that we have a time frame that's not tied to a year, because with this kind of work, there'll be plenty of months out of the year that you just can't replace the septic system. It's too wet, it's too muddy, there's too much going on. And so we're gonna lose a few months every year just for those kind of conditions. So I think that concern has been alleviated by the time frame now that DEQ is working with us on. So what does this mean to you guys? So in this grant, Community Action Team is responsible for all the outreach, all the reporting, all the project management. The county that is the lead recipient on this will provide to DEQ quarterly reporting. And those reports will be done by us and passed over to you guys and submitted. That goes along with the draws as well. So when we have a project we've identified, they've been determined income eligible. We've decided whether that's a loan or a grant. We've worked with the local jurisdiction on that project to make sure that we're hitting everything that is needed. We contract the work with the contractor. The contractor finishes the project. We bring back out the county, make sure all the necessary permits, everything has been checked off on. And at that point, we can submit those for reimbursement. Our thought is that's where the county is going to have the most interaction is when we submit reimbursements for projects. And so our thought is we're going to stage that so you may see those once every 2 months where we put in a reimbursement for you guys with all the necessary paperwork for DEQ. You guys submit that, DEQ writes you a check, you guys write us a check, we make sure the contractors are all paid up. Pretty smooth process. Every quarter, we will have to submit reports on how many projects we've got in progress, how many we've identified, how many have been completed, associated information from zip code and map data that they want to see. It's going to be pretty routine after the second one of these quarterly reports that we do. So in this process, you can anticipate there'll be 8 quarters that we have to report on. There's once a year, so for 2, there'll be yearly reports that we'll have to submit. Again, those will be done by us, submitted to you guys for review and passed on. The lift is pretty light. We do a lot of this type of work through community development block grants in our regional loan program where we do housing rehabilitation. And we feel very comfortable that on our side, we can alleviate most all the work on your staff side. That said, we've included in the budget about $9,000 a year for the county staff time in reviewing the reports that we're putting together. Because CAT uses the 0% no payment loan product with a 30-year maturity date, it gets us out of a lot of the onerous reporting that normally you'd have to do with a program like this. And when you get involved in banking type issues, there is lots of red tape. So there's a good reason for our 0% no interest 30-year loans. A lot of it is to keep the cost of the occupant, to keep those costs the same. So after the work's done, their cost of living hasn't increased, and that's very important. The other important reason that you do that is for the reporting in the banking regulations. When you do a 0% interest loan with no payments and a 30-year term, you're not acting like a traditional bank. And so a lot of the onerous reporting standards that you normally have to comply with, we do not have to comply with. So I think the other thing that's pretty interesting in this is the work with the watershed councils in the 3 counties. They're getting ready to embark on a lot of mapping and identifying projects in the watersheds for future stream rehab work. And so they're planning on doing a big push in the next 2 years with community events and outreach. And so some of the money that we get, we plan on passing directly through to those watersheds to help them in their outreach. And they're kind of our boots on the ground, where they probably have strong suspicions based on their data they've collected or experience in the counties where we might find some of these folks that need help getting those systems in place. It's not a lot of money on their end, but it enables them to use that as a match to some other grants that they're going to be applying for to do some of that outreach. So I think it's a good partnership with those guys. So in a nutshell, that's this DEQ grant. We're pretty tickled about it. All 3 counties, land development, public health departments have seen a good need for this and been working on this for a while. So we're very grateful that DEQ set aside this pot of money for this work. Would love to entertain any questions that you folks might have.
Thank you, Casey, appreciate that. Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Bell?
I don't have any questions for Casey at this time. I am interested in hearing from Chris Killa when we're ready for that.
Perfect. Commissioner Yamamoto, would you like to ask any questions of Casey, or would you like to ask questions of Chris? I can just queue up both.
I would echo Commissioner Bell. Casey, I appreciate everything you're doing here, and yes, I think we'll have questions for you, but I'd like to wrap that up a little closer as to how Chris Keola, our sanitarian, might utilize this program. Chris and I have had lots of conversations about septic, and I'd love to hear from Chris before we start questions.
Perfect. Chris?
Well, good morning, everyone. Chris Keola, Tillamook County On-Site Wastewater Community Development Department. This has always been a topic everywhere I've worked. There's always failing systems where, if the house is selling, then there's money coming out of the sale to pay for it. People do have money to fix their systems, but there's always that percentage of people that constantly live with a failing system because there's no resources for them. There's no sale in the future, and they're living there with a marginal system. Some installers offer kind of a unofficial payment plan. There's a CRAFT 3 loan program through the state, but that's a loan you have to pay monthly. Very low interest, but that is tied to monthly payments. So getting money for homeowners to upgrade their system or repair something is fantastic, because it really opens up these marginal areas that we know that there's some systems that are in critical watersheds and TEP. And I've had conversations with them, and they're working on grants as well. There's areas that they've identified that are hot spots for water quality issues in the county, and that's what we would focus on. And I already kind of have a short list of areas, at least, that we can go look at. And if there's no strings attached to the homeowners, some of them are a little leery about letting the government on their property to check out their system, because they always think that they're going to be held to the fire to pay for something. Sometimes these fixes are expensive. But if there's no strings attached to fix their system, it's a win-win for the county, water quality, and the homeowner. And yeah, there's going to be some legwork with it. And I talked to Aaron McConnell in Columbia County yesterday, and we'll get together with Lucas, who's our counterpart up in Clatsop County, to figure out, and with the commissioner's suggestions and what they want us to do, if we do get this money, who will lead it, who will do the footwork. I think our staff can handle it on a minimal basis if there's not a lot of paperwork. But I think it's a win-win for the county, and we're willing to put in some of that extra effort to make sure it gets done.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. So, Commissioner Bell, questions following that?
I think this sounds like a wonderful opportunity. I was wondering if we have, in Tillamook County, if we have data on how many septic systems and the age of septic systems. Do we have that kind of record?
We have that record. It's in about 40 filing cabinets. There has never been, since the mid-'80s, an actual count of number of systems in like one tabulated format. And that information's on floppy disks. Anyone have a floppy disk? I mean, we kind of have a ballpark how many systems are out there. We kind of know, there might be 5 to 10% of them that might be marginal or failing. Actual numbers, it would take us quite a while to pull that information. There's probably 15,000 systems in the county. And every year that number changes because we're putting a bunch in, and the communities are connecting a lot more to their sewer systems. Like Tillamook has done some sewer extension, Nesquin has done some sewer extension. So those numbers are constantly in flux, and we don't really have a really good tracking method of that. That probably did not answer your question, but kind of.
You did, thank you. Yeah, it's very interesting. I was remembering, listening to Casey talk, I was remembering, I used to have a neighbor who was a senior citizen and a widow on a fixed income, and her system failed. And she didn't have the money to have it fixed. And she did at the time have a small rental house, and so she moved into a rental house. And thank God for her that she had that option.
Mm-hmm.
But what it meant was that she therefore didn't have any rental income, and her house sat fallow because it couldn't be used because the system failed. And so I think it's a great example of the sorts of people that this would benefit. And I also liked what you said about TEP in places that are sensitive, that, where we're talking about water quality. So I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm fully supportive.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Yamamoto.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Casey, I appreciate everything you're doing here on behalf of the Community Action Team, keeping county's administrative functions to a minimum is greatly appreciated. Our staffing levels are tight, as you know. We've worked very closely in the past with both Clatsop and Columbia counties on a lot of different projects, and I'm glad to see this continuing to move forward. I think this is a great program. I know Chris and I have had lots of conversations over the years. Being a former realtor also, it boggles my mind that really the only time a septic system is truly inspected is when it first gets no requirements after that for ongoing inspections of septic systems. As a realtor, however, I always recommend to my clients that one of the first things they should do, if during the inspection process, if indeed they want to close on a home and that home is on a septic, is make sure that septic system is inspected. And invariably, oftentimes we find that it is a failing septic system. So some of this onus to me goes on the county, on the state. DEQ for not having any ongoing inspection protocols in place after a septic system is put in. Casey, you mentioned that some systems are upwards of $15,000 if they need to be repaired or replaced. I know some of the newer state-of-the-art systems. I mean, we're talking $20,000-$25,000 to get those replaced. And should we be requiring that people put in these more expensive state-of-the-art systems? Well, possibly, but that's going to entail a lot of money. I'm glad that the state is finally stepping up and putting these types of programs into place. These are expensive systems, but the end results on the environment, on our water quality, things of that nature, after septic fails, I mean, it's tremendous. It really is. And it's something that we need to fix. Chris and I have had lots of conversations about speaking with homeowners in South Tillamook County. I'm not going to mention a community, but I know Chris knows what I'm talking about. And it's a real problem. It is. So, again, Casey, I appreciate everything you're doing here. This is a terrific program, something we really need to put into place. I'm going to put one more plug in here for a watershed council. And that's Tillamook County desperately needs the watershed council in Central County. They can be a great assistance in our efforts here. Unfortunately, that watershed council is not in existence currently. So for everyone listening out there, we need people to step up and want to be members of a watershed council, especially on the board, to help us resolve some of these issues in Central County. But with that, again, for both of you, I appreciate everything you're doing, and let's make this work. And hopefully, this is going to be more than just a 2-year project. Hopefully, the state is going to continue to put money into this, because the water quality issues here are tremendous. So again, thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Couple things came up after listening to Chris that I think is worth mentioning on this. One, Craft 3 does have a loan product out there. For the folks that are above 120% AMI, when we reach those, we will be doing a direct referral to Craft 3 and working with those guys to pick up the folks that we've identified that we can't help. The other thing I think is worth mentioning on this is we're talking about expensive septic systems, and septic systems that may have never been permitted from the outside, from the onset. And what do you do now? You've got somebody living there, you've got a problem. Nobody's interested in kicking them out of their house, but nobody's interested in letting this fester and keep polluting our watersheds. And so we built into this budget some money for design professionals. When we run into a septic system that isn't the normal, we're going to have to reach out to an engineer to design us something given the circumstances of that particular parcel and the requirements of the county, and working with the county to say, maybe we can't do what, we can't provide a standard type system, but we can work with a professional, come up with the best case scenario for the person and the watershed. I think we can do that. We've built in enough money to do 4 or 5 in each county of these using a design professional if we run into that. The other thing is, and this came about in conversations with Columbia County, is they routinely pull well samples and routinely find E. coli in the wells. And so part of this grant, every house we go out and look at, whether in the end we're able to assist them or not, the first thing we're doing is pulling a well sample and running that down. So we can identify, a lot of times people don't know, it's their same old water we always had. Well, sometimes things change, and sometimes it's because of your septic, maybe your neighbor's septic, you don't know. But isolating that and knowing if we have a problem, I think is a good data set, and it's not a lot of extra expense when we're already out there on site to pull that out. One of the things that I think that all 3 counties could really assist in this is working with your folks on marketing and outreach, your websites, your mailers, press releases, those kind of things. I think we could make a very wide marketing appeal across all 3 counties. And then also working with your local Grange and folks that that may not be your traditional marketing outreach folks. We got to think a little bit outside the box, and that's where we're really looking forward to working with the watersheds and working directly with them. And Chris is right. It's difficult in our counties. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time. There's a certain percentage of the population that does not want you on their property, period. They're can be a little unreasonable. Well, it's not a good reason for us to not try and approach and figure out if we've got a problem and to work. And so when we identify those situations, it's probably going to be me going out there and trying to convince them that I am friend, not foe, and we're having a legitimate product to help them get right with the county, so you don't have to worry about those county guys no more. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out in the end.
Yeah, all right,
So-
thank you. I'm gonna move us forward. I think that this has been a robust conversation, but we have 2 decisions to make, I feel like, in front of us. So I'm gonna give a couple quick comments of my own, and then I'll move us forward to a decision point. First of which is just, I really appreciate this program as well. I think that it's much needed, and anytime we can really help our residents with something that they otherwise couldn't afford through being a conduit for these types of grants, we should do it. I just 100% believe that. The other thing I wanted to mention really quickly is Commissioner Yamamoto spoke about the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council in central Tillamook County, and I do want to verify that it does still exist, that they are in the process of rebuilding their board. So I think David made it sound like they didn't exist at all, and I really want to make sure that everyone knows they do. They have new board leadership, and they're in a board recruitment process. So if you're interested in getting involved in the Watershed Council in central Tillamook County, reach out to me and I can make that connection for you. Just the clarification there, because they will be coming before us for recognition for the OWEB grant coming up in the next 3 months. So just to be clear. Speaking to the hesitance really quickly that Casey spoke to, I actually ran a program in California years ago to put in ultra low flush toilets free of charge in people's homes, and it was a water conservation effort, and it was amazing how hard it was to get people to accept something for free. There definitely is a hesitance, and so that marketing will take some work on the county's part, no doubt, but I think it's well worth it to do that. So I want to move us first into what I think is the easy one. We have a letter in our packet that is a letter of support for this grant, and I think that question is the easy question for us to call, which is, are we in support? I think I've heard among the 3 of us that we are. So I would look for a motion to move forward the support of that letter as is listed in the packet, and then we will go into whether or not we would be willing to be the lead on the grant as a separate motion and conversation, which is not in our packet.
Madam Chair, I move approval of a letter of support and intent to participate in the State of Oregon's Department of Environmental Quality's grant for on-site septic financial aid program.
And I would second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion regarding this motion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Wonderful. So the second question in front of us is, among the 3 counties, somebody needs to step up and be the grantee. And the question before us today is whether or not Tillamook County is willing to step up and be that grantee. So I think Casey has given us a pretty clear listing of what CAT's responsibilities would be in that and what the county's responsibilities would be in that space. I did have a chance to talk with Rachel briefly this morning. Rachel, do you want to make any comments related to how you feel about what that would cause for the county, or do you have any additional questions for Casey?
Yeah, I don't have any additional questions. I think as presented, this is a great partnership opportunity where from whichever county it is, a nominal investment in time that apparently is going to be reimbursed, so that's not always the case, for a very large return on investment in a program that is long overdue. So that's exciting. I appreciate, if I heard him correctly, the intent to try to group projects for reimbursement, so we weren't literally getting every check for every project. So I appreciate that. I think if Tillamook County takes this on, I think there's opportunities for us to explore which department it is. I think it could make a lot of sense for Chris's department to do it. If it's just moving paperwork, we could do it, or if it's just the payment, which I think it is, it could potentially go right to the treasurer's office. So I think there's some room there, but certainly something that the county could provide. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm supportive if it comes to Tillamook County.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Sean, I see that you are online, and as a treasurer, I want to give you an opportunity to share any concerns that you might have or ask any questions that you might want to ask, since of course it is more money moving through the county if we say yes.
Right, so it is more money moving through the county. I guess I just am sitting there thinking whether or not we treat it like a TSCC payment and it has its own fund where it's just passed through. So it's just making updates to the budget as far as that goes. I guess I just need to know if we have an idea of how much it would be, because we would have to do a supplemental budget to adopt that new fund for those pass-through funds.
Thank you. Casey, can you remind me what the grant ask is? We know, of course, they may give us less, but.
We're asking for just under $2 million in the 2-year grant cycle.
Okay, thank you. And do you know when that would be awarded or decided?
January we'll have a award, and then 60 days after that we'll be looking at doing our first projects.
Okay, thank you. So Sean,
Okay, so potentially there wouldn't need to be a supplemental budget, because it doesn't sound like if you start the projects are reimbursed, correct? Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it might just be rolled into next year's 23-24 budget with a new fund for the pass-through, but I'll adjust. We'll roll with it.
thank you, Sean, I appreciate that. Commissioners, do you have questions that were not answered in our initial discussion around whether or not you feel comfortable with us taking the lead? Commissioner Bell?
So, just have we asked Columbia or Clatsop County? Are we the only ones who are considering this?
No, I believe that Casey goes from here at 10 o'clock. In fact, he is speaking at the Columbia County Board of Commissioners. The trick is the grant is due this Friday, so a decision on our behalf needs to be made this morning as to whether or not we are willing. We could certainly couch that we are willing if no one else is. If that feels like the way we want to go, or we could just step forward and say we're willing. I think that's really part of our conversation.
So,
Commissioners, can I make
Yes,
a quick
please.
clarification?
Yes, please.
So DEQ, in my opinion, put this out really quick, and I'm so grateful that they did it, but the timeframes they gave us didn't allow us to have robust meetings with the counties. And in fact, this grant is due at 5 o'clock today.
Sorry.
And so it's super tight. As you guys may or may not know, the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners meet at 5 o'clock today. So I think we can rule Clatsop County out. In talking with Leanne, they were having capacity issues, and they were looking at the possibility of contracting the work out that they may incur to Colpack or somebody else like that. So for all intents and purposes, we can count out Clatsop County just because of the timing. I am at 10 o'clock. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to drive down to the courthouse. I got a 10 o'clock Board of Commissioners meeting here in Columbia County. And Henry is receptive and knows that we need this funding. He is also worried about capacity issues, and I'll hear more about that in a little bit when I go down there. And so I wish we had more time. I apologize. The thought of putting this on any of the counties with such a short lead time is painful and not how we like to do business. That said, it is what we have to work with.
Thank you, Casey.
thank you. I have a question for Rachel. So in crafting this motion, am I crafting a motion for Tillamook County to provide fiscal management for this grant? Is that what we're talking about?
I think that would be an accurate way to say it.
We're the grantee.
Yeah,
Right, I mean,
Yeah, we would be the grantee, which assumes all management of the grant. But in the agreement that if we get the funds, in the agreement between us and CAT, the roles and responsibilities would be spelled out that they are doing all of it and we're just the pass through. But yes, you're making a motion that the Tillamook County would be the applicant or
Casey's got something.
D.
Yeah, it would be the grant, yeah, it would be the
Are we the
grantee.
grantee or the applicant,
Yeah.
Casey? What language
It would be
use?
both.
You know, wouldn't it be nice if it was consistent across all these grants? In this particular instance, you would be the recipient.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So the recipient of this grant.
Recipient of the,
Yeah.
okay. Commissioner Yamamoto, do you have further questions relating to that?
No, I don't. I think it's a great opportunity. I would just, I know Chris isn't gonna be involved in the money portion, but just wanna ask Chris if he's good with that. I don't see how this could add any additional work for Chris, but just wanna ask him.
I see how good.
I do too.
Well, it would add tremendously to the permit intake and processing and site visits and inspections and all that, but I mean, it's got to be done. And every system we replace is a better system, so even though it entails a lot more work, I mean, we got to do it. So, and I do have half a person to help out, so, I mean, we'll just jump to it. Hopefully all of them are done in the summertime. But we'll do them in January too. We can handle it.
That's either done. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so
I'm in full support.
perfect, thank you. I'm not hearing any other questions from commissioners, and I am in support of us being a recipient. Do you feel like you can craft a motion on the fly for us?
Sure. Madam Chair, I move approval for Tillamook County to apply for and receive the State of Oregon's Department of Environmental Quality's grant for on-site septic financial aid program.
And I would second and just ask Bill Sargent if that's appropriate.
It is, David. I agree with Rachel, and that's a good motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a
Perfect.
second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Casey, thank you for being here. Chris, thank you for joining us this morning. And I will certainly keep our fingers crossed that we are awarded and can do some really good work for folks who live in Sonoma County. And thank you to Board of Commissioners for your flexibility and willingness to step forward. So what I didn't share that I should have up front is I sit on the Community Action Team Board of Directors as part of my liaison work here in Sonoma County. So very confident and comfortable with this organization and pleased to be able to have Tillamook County step up in support. So thank you.
Thank you, Casey and Chris.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
And Casey, please give all of our best to Margaret, Henry, and Casey at Columbia County.
I will definitely pass them on and tell them about how Tillamook County stepped up.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, folks. If you don't have anything more for me, I'm gonna jump in my car and head down to the courthouse.
No, we don't. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 7, which is discussion and consideration in an order in the matter of directing the sheriff to advertise and sell certain properties. Rachel Haggerty, Chief of Staff.
I am excited to be presenting this to you this morning. We have not had a tax foreclosed land sale auction in years. So before you is consideration of the properties that we will be auctioning off, propose to auction off with your approval for the 2022 land sale auction. It will actually occur in 2023, but initiating the paperwork in 2022. So just, there's extensive information provided in your packet as well as posted with the agenda, and that will be information on the properties that's posted on the Real Property website. So interested bidders can go there and find this information before the land sale auction. A brief summary of the properties that we're looking at. We have 20. There's 2 that are a carryover from the 2020 auction that did not sell. There were more at the 2020 auction, but over the last couple of years, there's been some sales that are allowed in between land sale auctions. We have 3, so everything else is new. We have 3 that came to the county in the 2020 tax foreclosed or tax collector's deed, which is a result of the 2017 tax foreclosure process. 7 in the 2021 deed from the 2018 tax foreclosure process. 6 that we took title this year from the 2019 tax foreclosure process. And then there's 2 others that were identified in our records that we wondered why we have these. So we're offering those up for sale this year. The parcel size ranges from 0.02 acres to 40.82 acres. That's the Sand Lake Road property. The minimum bid price ranges from $1,000 to $348,000. Those prices are set based on the tax assessor's real market value. There's some rounding there, but it's basically what it is, unless there is some other compelling reason to move the property. A few years ago, we had a property in Nehalem that we did some extensive cleanup on, but the structure remained, and we were worried about squatters coming back in there, so we dropped it to move it. We don't have any properties like that this year. We do have a couple of properties that we had extensive cleanup on, but we have not dropped it because the structures are gone that we would be concerned about squatters entering. Otherwise, carryover properties, so the two just continue to drop in price 20% based on the 20% of the last minimum bid price. We only have one with a structure, and it's just a small shop. That's the property on Highway 6 where other cleanup was done with the Solid Waste and Public Works Department. They were great these last couple of years. We had a few properties that needed cleanup, and they really stepped up. David McCall at Solid Waste leading those efforts, so I thank them for their time on that. 6 properties are within incorporated cities throughout the county. 5 properties are within city urban growth boundaries, and 1 property, which is one of our carryover properties, was dedicated parks property back in 1947. So when this property if this property sells, a portion, 85% would go to the Parks Department, consistent with our policies. All of these properties have been vetted for the county's desire to surplus them by Community Development, Parks Department, and Public Works Department. And so they are ready for your consideration in this board order. We are setting forth in the order that on January 31st at 1 p.m. at the Tillamook County Library is when the auction would occur. By statute, the sheriff conducts the auction. So I'll be working with him on that. The sheriff and the treasurer will attend. Also required by statute is 4 weeks of consecutive noticing in the Headlight Herald. So beginning December 21st, we'll begin the 4 weeks of noticing. And also, we're not required to do, but we do it as a courtesy. We send out an extensive mailing to all adjacent landowners, and we have some specific individuals who have contacted us over the last couple of years interested in some of these properties that will be notified as well. Lastly, the order sets forth how the properties can be purchased if they are awarded to a bidder. One is cash; they can pay in full, and they would get a deed as soon as it's signed by the Board of Commissioners. And the other option is we offer the option to purchase the property on contract. So if the property sale price is $20,000 or more, we allow them to carry it on contract for 5 years, 10% interest with 20% down. So that is very high interest, and it's set that way so we don't carry the property. But these often get paid off early, and there's no early termination fees or anything like that, but it allows people to just get the property and maybe secure some other financing down the road. So I think that is all the details I wanted to share, and it's ready for consideration.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Appreciate that. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Bell?
I don't have questions, but I want to thank you for your work on this and thank your staff for their work on this. This represents a lot of work, and I think it's exciting. I'm glad that we're moving forward with it. It's wonderful to get these properties back on the tax rolls and in some cases to facilitate development of them. And so I think it's terrific. So thank you.
Commissioner Yamamoto?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Bell. There's been a lot of work put into this, and I appreciate it. I have one question. On parcel 13, page 5 of 9, I would call it a Scribner's error, but I think it's more of a formatting error, possibly. At least it is on my copy. Does anyone else see that?
You're in the exhibit of the order? Parcel 13, if you're questioning how the legal descriptions, written, that probably isn't a Scrivener's error. But go ahead, what was your comment?
No, so there, so line 4, after, lying south of the Lunastucca River, and then there's a space, and it's indented TH, capital E along the south. Is that just the way that this works? I've never seen a property description like that before.
Yeah, legal descriptions can be very shorthand, and these are, we could write some of these out, but I usually err on the side of caution and copy and paste it from original legal descriptions. So, yeah, that TH would be then or thence, POB would be point of beginning, MOL is more or less. So it's shorthand legal descriptions.
I thought you could have more or less
Yeah.
legal descriptions.
Exactly.
Well,
I didn't write this.
Okay, that's fine. Good.
Yeah, call your local surveyor's office.
That's still my department, isn't it? Huh?
Yes, we left that one with you. I think this is on you.
Okay, that answers my question.
That answers your question. Okay, and mine's just really a comment. I know that we vet all of these to see if there is any use in the county keeping them related to housing development in the light of our current housing crisis. And I actually went back and asked again, both Sarah and Rachel, are we sure there's no creative way that any of these can be used for housing development to make a difference in what's happening? And the answer was, it just doesn't make sense. Really, these are not lots that we can hold on to and develop. And if you spend time looking at the descriptions and the maps and so forth, you will see the challenges of many of these lots, which is, I'm sure, why they ended up in foreclosure. They're often not accessed by a street. They're not in a developed area. They're very tiny. There's just a lot of pieces to these. And I do want to assure people that before the county sells these properties, we do vet them for whether or not they can be part of a solution to the housing crisis. So, and I appreciate the work that Rachel and Sarah have done, and I did question it because I'm just in that mode of like, is there a creative way we can use this, so I appreciate all the work that goes into it, and that you all have an eye to that as you do it.
Yeah, and with 20 properties, you would think that there would be one. And there are, many of them can be developed, but they're a single unit, and so for the county to take a leadership in that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I
Right.
think, Sarah, did you have a comment? I saw your camera come on.
No, thank you. Just thought I'd be ready if questions were asked.
Yeah. No, and there's one that is the large piece of property, which is down on Sand Lake, which is not developable. I think that's the other, piece. People are like, wow, why did you buy acreage if you weren't selling acreage? What's happening here? And it goes back to how it's zoned and where it's located as to what it can be used for. And that larger chunk is, I believe it's farm. Yeah, it's farm, which, is great. Let's get it back in, farm use and keep that happening. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of order number 22-069 in the matter of directing the sheriff to advertise and sell certain properties.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, thank you. Okay, I think that at this time we have an executive session that we will go into prior to opening the public hearing. So, Bill, do you have the number for us under which we will go into that
I
executive
have
session?
it written down, Commissioner Scar,
Perfect.
192-660-2F.
Perfect, thank you. So we will recess this Board of Commissioners meeting and go into executive session. And we're recessing at 10:01. Yes?
Real quick, so do I need to log out and log in? Is there a special link for the executive session? Thank you.
Calendar, Commissioner.
I will do so.
Okay, so we will recess
Thank
this
you.
meeting at 10:01 a.m.
Are we ready?